What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the plyometric progression that I use when training my athletes and anybody that I do plyometrics with. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I post new videos every Tuesdays and Thursdays, so make sure you're subscribed to catch all of them. Real quickly, I apologize for my appearance. My hair is like a rat's nest. I played soccer this morning, so I'm looking like a scrub, but you know, you guys are used to it by now. So to kick off this plyometric progression workout, obviously you know how important plyometrics are. They are the foundation to power, them, and strength. You know how much I love my strength, but plyometrics are super important also for joint health and joint strength. So we want to make sure we are doing plyometrics, and there is a correct order in which you should be doing your plyometric exercises. A lot of people just jump straight in. If they want to jump higher, they're going to work on jumping, but there is an order and you do have to do it in a correct fashion in order to produce your max benefit, to get the most out of it. You know, if you work on jumping, you're going to increase your jump, absolutely, but if you want to reach your full potential and even go through that, then you want to work in this order. So I break it down into 3 categories. The first is going to be absorption, the second is amortization, and the third is production. This is very similar to how I do strength training. I break it down into the triphasic movements of eccentric, isometric, and concentric. So with this, it's about landing, ground contact time, and power production. So the first part is absorption, and there's 3 subcategories of this phase: bilateral, unilateral, and shock absorption. The absorption phase is basically what it sounds, just working on absorbing force, working on your landing. This is arguably the most important part, because if we don't have an efficient landing, a lot of the force that we can absorb to store kinetic energy within our muscles will dissipate if our landing isn't efficient. So we need to work on sticking the landing, not having our butt dip or butt sink when we land, but sticking it hard, absorbing force, withstanding force, so then we can later quickly transfer it to the ground, back to us, and produce even more force. So this phase is very important. That's why it's the first phase you work on. So you need to work on that landing. And to kick it off, we're going to do a bilateral movement. When we do a bilateral movement, it's going to be off both legs, bilateral, and we're going to work on all 3 joints of the knees, the hips, and the ankles. When we jump or when we do any movement that's dynamic, it comes from all of those joints. It's not just the hips or just that hinge movement. It is all 3, the ankles, the knees, and the hips. So we're going to train them in an isolated manner, doing something like a pogo to work the ankles, and then we're also going to break down doing something for the knees, and then something to bring it all together, including that hip hinge. So then we'll start from a pogo jump, and then we'll progress it all the way up to like a squat jump, for example, that includes everything. Once the athlete shows that they can land properly and absorb force, we're going to move on to unilateral movements. So I jumped unilateral pretty quickly. I don't wait a while. As soon as my athlete shows they can do a bilateral movement, I go straight to unilateral. And that's because unilateral strength is crucial for sports. A lot of athletic movements is based upon unilateral strength. So if you are good at absorbing force in both legs, you're going to be great at absorbing force when you put them together. So when we do unilateral, we want to make sure we're working on all 3 planes: horizontal, vertical, and lateral. So we're going to do like a single leg broad jump, a single leg vertical jump, or a single leg lateral jump. Something that we are jumping and then we are sticking the landing, making sure that it is good on both legs so that we have equal strength and equal abilities. All right, and then the third part of this is going to be working on that shock absorption. So when we do something like a depth drop, that's when you're coming off of a platform like a bench, for example, and you have to stick that landing from a higher surface. And the point of doing this at this stage is we're not really focused on producing force, we're just focused on absorbing force. So we want to absorb more force than we are producing. So by getting on that higher platform, we have more momentum when we come down, we have more force we have to absorb and withstand. So that's category 1. All right, moving on to the second phase of the plyometric progression, and this is going to be the amortization phase. So what this phase is, it's all about decreasing ground contact time. This is just as important as the first one, because if we absorb force efficiently, but we can't transfer it well and we just have all that energy dissipate, you're not going to be able to utilize it when you are trying to produce force. So you want to absorb it well, but you also need to quickly transfer it to use it to produce more force. And it's going to be similar to phase 1. that absorption phase. But instead of just doing one exercise where you stick the landing, you're gonna do multiple reps. So you're gonna do 3 broad jumps, 3 single leg vertical jumps, just connected plyos like that. That's gonna work on absorbing and going quickly. Another thing we can do is add some resistance. So we can do like something with a med ball, where we do a med ball broad jump or a med ball lateral jump, as I've showed you guys before. And by adding this resistance, it's gonna be working on your body's ability to absorb force, to absorb more force than we can on our own, and then to utilize that force to produce force. So if you work on absorbing more force than you produce at any point, when you drop that added force and you're back on your own, you're going to be so much more efficient because your body's going to be used to having to do heavier loads. So that's why we'll add some type of resistance in there. And then another thing I'll do is progress the depth drop to a depth jump. So instead of just sticking the landing when you come off that platform, we're going to stick the landing but immediately go into another movement. So you're gonna come from the platform, you're gonna hit the ground, and you're gonna go to a vertical jump, or you're gonna hit the ground, do a broad jump, something where you quickly absorb and then quickly produce. That's what that middle phase is, and that's what this amortization phase is all about. All right, and then the third phase is that production phase. So this is about taking everything you've learned from the absorption and the amortization and utilizing that to produce even more force. So we're gonna break this down into 4 different training mechanisms. The first thing we're gonna do is what I call dead starts. So this is gonna be something where you cannot absorb force and you can't utilize kinetic energy stored in your muscles. You're gonna be starting at the position that you're jumping from so that you have to quickly turn on your motor units, quickly jump and produce your own force. So this is gonna be like a seated box jump, for example, where you're seated in that position and then immediately you have to jump and go. And what this works on is your force production capabilities. So if we can produce this much amount of power on our own, after doing dead starts, we're gonna get our body to produce this much. So if we're producing here, once we can start applying absorbed force, that's gonna add even more kinetic energy in our muscles to take it up to here. Yes, I know my hand gestures are probably very confusing, but we're starting here and we're ending here. That's what you need to know. Look at that, we're like out of the picture frame. That's what's important. So we can work on dead starts. Another thing we can do is accelerated plyos. And you've seen me do a lot of these, like an accelerated vertical jump, for example, when you have a resistance band at a high platform, then you put it around your arms and it helps you jump high. Working in this state where you are jumping higher than you can or doing a movement faster than you can on your own, get your body used to having to produce that much amount of power and force in order to get those results. And a lot of the times, there's been numerous studies that show in training, it's hard to replicate the same velocity that we get during the game. So by doing some type of accelerated plyo, it helps our body get to that level that we need to, whether we're running at our max speed for longer, whether we're running past our max speed, something that accelerated exercises will help you with. And it also works on having to absorb force from that high threshold that you can't really get on your own. The third part of this is doing some type of max effort plyo. So this is going to be your all-out movement, as much power as you got, everything you have, one time, one rep. So whether it's your max vertical jump, your max box jump, max broad jump, whatever it is, your one max effort. And this is just going to work on continuing to increase your power production capabilities, increase your rate of force development. Instead of doing 3 where you're holding back a little bit, you're going 1 all out, balls to the walls, everything you got. The fourth and final part of this is going to be doing some type of sport-specific exercise. Now, this is when you take into consideration the sport and position you play and the plyometrics that you have to work on to make yourself better. So this is going to be different for each sport. It's going to be different for soccer than it is baseball, than it is skiing. All these things, you have to really look at what you need to do, and then you have to train that. So many different things for different sports. So this is when the coach or you, if you're making your own programs, need to break down the movements that you do in your sport and apply exercises that will help you at those. Alrighty guys, so I hope this video was helpful for you. In the description box below, I'm putting a link to the article I have written on plyometric progressions, in which I break down like 50 exercises that I use the correct phases, the sub-phases, and then exercises for that. All these different things that you guys can use. So that's in the description box below. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our Instagram at powerlooks_fitness. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Stay rad.